A woman stands at the edge of a cliff where mist swallows the valley below, holding the only thing that can destroy the man who murdered her family. But using it will cost her the one soul she has learned to love. The choice must be made before dawn breaks, and dawn is already painting the eastern sky with threads of silver. This is how Wei Liang came to balance between vengeance and mercy, though the story begins many years earlier, in a garden where plum blossoms fell like snow. Wei Liang was 16 when she first saw the mirror, though she did not know then what it was or what bargain her grandfather had made to possess it. She only knew that on certain nights, when the moon was full and bright, he would lock himself in the western tower of their estate, and strange lights would flicker through the shutters like captured stars. Her grandfather, Wei Hao, was the magistrate of Chengzhou, a man respected for his wisdom and feared for his absolute sense of justice. He never smiled, not even at her, though she was the jewel of the Wei family, trained in poetry, painting, and the zither since she could hold a brush. The night everything changed began with joy. It was the festival of lanterns, and the Wei estate blazed with red silk and golden light. Wei Liang wore robes of midnight blue embroidered with silver cranes, and her hair was dressed with ornaments of jade that chimed softly when she moved. The man she was to marry, Chen Bao, stood beside her father in the courtyard, and though the marriage had been arranged, Wei Liang had grown fond of him through their carefully chaperoned meetings. He was gentle, scholarly, with kind eyes that seemed to apologize for occupying space in the world. She was watching acrobats tumble and spin in the torchlight when she noticed the stranger. He stood at the edge of the courtyard, half hidden by the shadow of a persimmon tree, and his robes were the color of smoke. Unlike the other guests who laughed and drank and called out in delight, he remained utterly still, his gaze fixed on the western tower. Wei Liang felt ice trace her spine. She tugged her father's sleeve and pointed. But when they looked, the man had vanished like morning mist. The attack came 3 hours past midnight. Wei Liang woke to screaming and the smell of smoke. She stumbled from her bed, confused by sleep, and opened her door to find the corridor filled with armed men in masks of black cloth. One of them grabbed her, and she fought, scratching and biting, until someone struck her head and the world became dark and distant. When she woke, she was lying in the garden among the plum blossoms. Dawn was breaking, cold and gray. She pushed herself up on trembling arms and saw that the main hall was burning, flames reaching toward the sky like desperate prayers. Servants were scattered across the courtyard, some moaning, some ominously still. She ran toward the house, calling for her father, her mother, her grandfather, but rough hands caught her and held her back. It was Chen Bao, his face blackened with soot, blood streaming from a wound on his temple. "Don't look," he said, his voice breaking. "Please, Wei Liang, don't look." But she tore free and ran, and she did look. Her father lay in the entranceway, his throat cut so deeply that his head bent at an impossible angle. Her mother was crumpled beside him, her hand still reaching toward him. In the western tower she found her grandfather, but he was not dead. Not quite. Wei Hao lay in a spreading pool of blood, his robes shredded by sword cuts, but his eyes were open and aware. The room was in chaos, scrolls scattered, furniture overturned, and on the floor, shattered into a dozen pieces, was a mirror frame of dark wood carved with characters so ancient Wei Liang could not read them. But the mirror itself, the glass, was gone. Her grandfather's hand shot out and gripped her wrist with startling strength. "The mirror," he gasped, blood bubbling at his lips. "They took it. The man in gray. His name is Sheng Wu." "Grandfather, please, I'll get help." "Listen." His grip tightened until it hurt. "The mirror was made by a fox spirit 500 years ago. It drinks moonlight and grants wishes, but every wish has a price. I used it once, only once, to save your father's life when he was a boy. The price was that I could never smile again." He coughed, and more blood came. "Sheng Wu came to me years ago, begging to use it. His daughter was dying. I refused. The mirror is too dangerous. It twists what you ask for. It tricks you. Now he has it, and he will use it, and he will doom himself. But first," his breath rattled, "first he will destroy anyone who might take it back. He has killed us all to keep it safe." Wei Liang was weeping now, tears streaming down her face. What do I do? Wei Hao's eyes focused on her with terrible intensity. Find the fox spirit who made it. Her name is Hu Yue. She lives on Mount Qingming, in a cave behind the waterfall of 9 dragons. She can unmake what she created. But Wei Liang, my pearl, my precious girl, she will demand a price. The fox spirits always do. Everything is a bargain with them. Everything. His hand fell away. His eyes remained open, staring at nothing, and Wei Liang screamed. The authorities came with the morning. The magistrate's murder could not be ignored. But Chen Bao's father, Chen Zheng, was a powerful merchant with connections to the provincial governor. And when he spoke quietly to the investigators, mentioning bandits and the dangerous roads, they nodded and wrote in their reports what they were told to write. The dead were burned according to custom. The estate was sealed. Wei Liang, the sole survivor of the main family, should have gone to live with distant cousins, but Chen Zheng offered to take her in as a kindness, so that she and Chen Bao might marry sooner and she would not be alone in her grief. She accepted because she had nowhere else to go and no way to refuse. But at night, lying in a strange bed in the Chen household, she would press her grandfather's final words into her memory, like a seal into wax. Sheng Wu, Hu Yue, Mount Qingming. The mirror that drank moonlight, revenge. For 3 months, she played the role of the grieving daughter, properly subdued, accepting comfort from Chen Bao, who was unfailingly gentle with her. She almost felt guilty for what she planned, but then she would remember her father's body, her mother's outstretched hand, and the guilt would calcify into resolve. She began to steal money, small amounts at first, coins from Chen Bao's purse, a silver hairpin from his mother's dressing table. She felt like a thief, like something low and shameful, but she needed funds for the journey. Mount Qingming was 3 weeks' travel north, through territories controlled by warlords and haunted by bandits. A woman alone would need bribes, protection, passage. On the night of the new moon, when darkness was absolute and the household slept deeply, Wei Liang dressed in the plainest clothes she had, bound her hair like a country girl, and slipped out through the servants' entrance. She had 20 silver thalls, a knife she barely knew how to use, and her grandfather's final words to guide her. The journey was harder than she had imagined. She traveled by foot, by river barge, by ox cart, always moving north. She told people she was traveling to find her brother, or her husband, or her father, whatever story seemed most likely to buy her passage to the next town. She learned to sleep lightly, to hide her money in her shoe, to recognize when a man looked at her with hunger rather than kindness. Twice she had to run. Once she had to use the knife, slashing wildly until her attacker stumbled back, cursing. She did not know if she had hurt him badly. She ran before she could find out. After 19 days, she reached the foothills of Mount Qingming. The mountain rose before her like a wall between earth and heaven, its peaks lost in cloud. Locals in the last village warned her not to ascend. The mountain was sacred, they said, and dangerous. Strange lights danced there at night. People who climbed it sometimes never returned, and those who did come back spoke in riddles or not at all. Wei Liang climbed anyway. She followed a path that wound through pine forests and across streams that ran cold and clear over stones worn smooth by centuries of water. The air grew thin. Her legs ached. But she kept climbing, driven by the faces of the dead that visited her dreams each night. On the 3rd day of climbing, she found the waterfall. It was exactly as her grandfather had described. A cascade that fell in 9 distinct streams, each one catching the light differently, creating rainbows in the mist. Behind the falling water, visible through the curtain of white, was a darkness that suggested depth, a cave mouth like an open throat. Wei Liang stepped through the waterfall. The cold water struck her like 1,000 needles, soaking her instantly, stealing her breath. But then she was through, standing in the cave, dripping and shaking. The cave was larger than she had expected, its walls glittering with some mineral that caught even the faint light from outside and magnified it into a soft, pervasive glow. At the back of the cave, sitting on a stone that seemed to have been shaped into a throne, was a woman of impossible beauty. Her hair was the color of autumn leaves, red and gold and copper, falling past her waist in waves. Her eyes were amber, bright, and knowing, with pupils that were just slightly too elongated to be human. She wore robes of white silk that seemed to shimmer with their own light, and 9 foxtails, red as blood, spread behind her like a peacock's fan. Wei Liang, the fox spirit said, and her voice was like wind through bamboo, musical and strange. Granddaughter of Wei Hao, you have come to ask me about the mirror. Wei Liang tried to speak, but her teeth were chattering too hard. The fox spirit made a gesture, and suddenly Wei Liang was warm and dry, her clothes steaming slightly. She swallowed hard. How did you know I would come? I have been watching you since the night your family died. Hu Yue tilted her head, studying Wei Liang with those unsettling eyes. I watch all those touched by the mirror. It is my creation, after all. My masterpiece. My greatest trick. My grandfather said you could destroy it. I can, but I won't. Do you know why? Hu Yue stood, and her tail swayed behind her like living things. Because I'm curious. I made the mirror 500 years ago to see how humans would use it, what wishes they would make, what prices they would pay. It has shown me greed, ambition, love, desperation, the full spectrum of human desire. And now Shengwu has it, and he is the most interesting case yet. What did he wish for? Wei Liang asked, though part of her didn't want to know. He wished for his daughter to live. The mirror granted it. She lives still, 5 years past the night she should have died. But the price? Hu Yue smiled, and it was a fox's smile, sharp and knowing. The price is that she will never wake. She sleeps in a jade coffin in his home, breathing, her heart beating, but trapped in dreams forever. He visits her every day. He speaks to her. He believes foolishly that if he keeps the mirror safe, if he protects it absolutely, perhaps one day he will find a way to break its curse and wake her. Wei Liang felt something twist in her chest, something that might have been pity. She crushed it down. He murdered my family. Yes, he did, to protect the mirror, to protect his daughter's life, however hollow that life may be. Hu Yue moved closer, and Wei Liang could smell her scent, wild, like forest and frost. But you did not come here to understand Shengwu. You came for revenge. You want me to help you take the mirror from him, or destroy it, so that his daughter dies, and he suffers as you have suffered. Yes, Wei Liang said, and the word felt like a blade in her mouth. Then I will make you a bargain, Hu Yue said. The mirror cannot be destroyed while it holds a wish. Only when the wish is fulfilled or broken can it be unmade. I will give you a way to break Shengwu's wish. I will give you the knowledge to wake his daughter so that the mirror's hold is released. And then I will give you the mirror itself to do with as you please. You could destroy it, you could use it, you could throw it into the sea. The choice would be yours. Wei Liang's heart was pounding. What price do you ask? Hu Yue's smile widened. The price is this. You must live in Shengwu's household for 1 year as a servant. You must tend to his daughter daily. You must see him grieve. You must know him as a man, not as a monster. At the end of the year, you may wake the daughter and take the mirror. But Wei Liang, here is the trick. Here is my curiosity made manifest. I wonder if, after knowing him, after seeing his love and his pain, you will still choose revenge. Or if you will choose mercy. That is the price. You must risk your own heart changing. Wei Liang wanted to refuse. The idea of serving the man who had killed her family, of living under his roof, of pretending servility and gratitude, it was obscene. But she had no other path, no other way to reach him or the mirror. I accept, she said. Hu Yue clapped her hands in delight. Excellent, then let me prepare you. You cannot go to him as Wei Liang, granddaughter of the man he killed. You must be someone else, someone he will not suspect. The fox spirit touched Wei Liang's face, and power flowed through the contact, ancient and strange. Wei Liang felt her features shift, not painfully but disconcertingly, like wearing a mask made of her own skin. When Hu Yue handed her a mirror, a normal mirror, plain bronze polished bright, Wei Liang saw a different face looking back. Still young, still female, but with broader features, darker skin, a small scar on her chin. Your name is Liu Shu, Hu Yue said. You are an orphan from the south, skilled in nursing and care of the sick. You have come to Chengzhou seeking work. Sheng Wu is always looking for attendants for his daughter. He interviews them himself. He is very particular, but he will hire you because I will whisper in his dreams that you are the one he needs. Now go. Your year begins when you enter his house. Wei Liang, now Liu Su, left the mountain with her new face and her terrible purpose. She felt like a weapon that had been forged and sharpened, ready to be driven home. Sheng Wu lived in a compound on the western edge of Chengzhou, near where the Wei estate had stood before it burned. The irony was not lost on Wei Liang. The compound was large, but not ostentatious, surrounded by high walls of gray brick. She presented herself at the servants' entrance and told the steward she was seeking a position as an attendant. The steward looked her over with tired eyes and told her to wait. An hour later, she was brought before Sheng Wu himself. He sat in a spare, cold room with no decoration save a single scroll painting of mountains. He was not what she expected. She had built him in her mind as a monster, cruel and hard. But the man before her looked carved from sorrow. He was perhaps 50, with gray threading his hair and lines of pain etched deep around his mouth and eyes. He wore scholar's robes of brown silk, and his hands, folded on the table before him, trembled slightly. "You wish to tend my daughter," he said. His voice was soft, almost gentle. "Yes, master. I have experience with the sick and She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "The sleeping. She is not sick. She is cursed." He said it matter-of-factly, and Wei Liang saw in his eyes the exhaustion of someone who has long since moved past shame or secrecy into simple, hollow truth. "She will not wake. She requires turning every few hours to prevent sores. She must be cleaned, fed through a tube, her hair brushed, her nails trimmed. It is not pleasant work." "I am not afraid of unpleasant work, master." He studied her for a long moment. "I dreamed of you last night," he said finally. "A woman with a scar on her chin, coming to help my daughter. I do not usually believe in dreams, but I have learned that some things in this world are beyond understanding. You may begin today. The steward will show you to your quarters and to my daughter's room." Wei Liang bowed deeply, hiding her face, afraid that somehow he would see through Hu Yue's glamour and recognize the girl whose family he had destroyed. The daughter's name was Shengling, and she lay in a room that smelled of jasmine incense and something else, something like stillness itself. The jade coffin was translucent, carved with phoenixes and clouds, and through it, Wei Liang could see the girl inside. She was perhaps 14, with delicate features, and long black hair spread around her like water. Her chest rose and fell in the slow rhythm of deep sleep. Her eyes moved beneath her lids, dreaming endlessly. Wei Liang felt something crack inside her chest. She had expected to hate this girl, this daughter whose life had cost her family theirs. But looking at Shengling, trapped in sleep, stolen from herself, she felt only a terrible, aching pity. The work was exactly as Sheng Wu had described: intimate, difficult, and endless. Wei Liang learned to lift the lid of the jade coffin, to turn Shengling's body gently to prevent bed sores, to drip water and broth into her mouth, to wash her with careful hands. She brushed the girl's hair and sang to her, though she did not know why. Perhaps because the silence felt too heavy. Perhaps because she remembered her own mother singing to her when she was small. Sheng Wu came every day at sunset. He would sit beside the coffin and talk to his daughter. He told her about the garden, about the plum blossoms blooming, about letters from her friends who thought she was away visiting relatives. He read her poetry. Sometimes he wept. He never spoke of what he had done to obtain the mirror or what price he had paid. But Wei Liang saw the price written on his face, in the gray in his hair, in the way he moved like a man carrying an impossible weight. Weeks passed into months. Spring turned to summer. Wei Liang lived in the strange limbo of her false identity, playing the role of Liu Shu while Wei Liang screamed for revenge somewhere deep inside. But it was getting harder to hear that scream. It was being muffled by the daily intimacy of care, by the quiet conversations she had with Sheng Wu when he would ask her questions about her fictional past, and she would spin lies that felt increasingly empty. One night, 5 months into her service, she was preparing to leave Shengling's room when Sheng Wu arrived earlier than usual. He looked worse than she had ever seen him, pale and shaking. He collapsed into the chair beside the coffin and put his face in his hands. Wei Liang should have left. It was not her place to stay. But she found herself asking, "Master, are you unwell?" He looked up at her, and his eyes were red. "Do you know what I did to get the mirror, Liu Shu?" She froze. "Master, I murdered a family, an entire family. The magistrate Wei Hao and his wife and son. Because Wei Hao had the mirror and he would not give it to me, and my daughter was dying, and I—" His voice broke. "I told myself it was necessary. I told myself their lives for hers was a fair trade. I told myself I would only use the mirror once. Only for her, and then I would hide it away where no one could find it. But the mirror tricked me. It kept her alive but took her away just the same. And the family I murdered, they haunt me. Every night." Wei Hao's granddaughter was 16. The same age as my Ling. She lived. I made sure of it. I could not kill a girl my daughter's age. But I killed her grandfather, her parents. I took everything from her. Wei Liang could not breathe. The room was spinning. He had let her live, deliberately. Not by chance, but by choice, because she was the same age as his daughter. "Why are you telling me this?" she whispered. "Because I am dying," he said simply. "The mirror demands a price for everything. My price was my life, given slowly. I have perhaps 2 months left. And I am terrified of what will happen to Ling when I am gone. Who will protect the mirror? Who will keep her alive, even in this half-life?" Wei Liang left the room. She stumbled to her quarters and vomited until there was nothing left in her stomach. Then she wept. She wept for her family. She wept for Shengling. She wept for Shengwu, which felt like the worst betrayal of all. How could she pity him? How could she see him as anything but a murderer? But she did. She saw him as a father who had made a terrible choice born from love. She saw him as a man being devoured by guilt and by the mirror's curse. She saw him as someone suffering exactly the way she had wanted him to suffer, and it brought her no satisfaction at all. Only a hollow, sick feeling that settled in her bones. The next morning, she returned to Mount Qingming. She climbed for 2 days straight, barely stopping to sleep. She burst through the waterfall and into the cave, dripping and desperate. Hu Yue sat on her throne, waiting. "Your year is not yet complete." "I know, but I need answers. You said I could wake Shengling. How?" The fox spirit's eyes gleamed. "Oh, this is interesting. You want to wake her. Not for revenge, but for him. Tell me how." Hu Yue stood and paced in a circle around Wei Liang, her 9 tails swaying. The mirror twisted Shengwu's wish. He asked for his daughter to live, and the mirror granted it, but made her life a living death. To break the curse, someone must offer the mirror a counter-wish, a wish of equal weight. The wish must be for Shengling's waking, and the price must be freely accepted. But the price, Wei Liang, will be terrible. The mirror will demand something equal to a life. Perhaps your own life, perhaps something worse. I don't care. Don't you? Think carefully. You would sacrifice yourself for the daughter of the man who murdered your family. That is not revenge. That is redemption. Are you sure that is what you want? Wei Liang closed her eyes. She saw her grandfather's face, her father's body, her mother's outstretched hand. She saw Shengling dreaming in her jade coffin. She saw Shengwu weeping beside her. And she realized that somewhere in the past 5 months, her heart had changed without her permission. She no longer wanted revenge. She wanted the suffering to end. For everyone. "I am sure," she said. Hu Yue smiled. And it was a different smile than before. Not mocking, but almost proud. "Then you must take the mirror from Shengwu. It is hidden in the western tower of his compound, in a room behind a false wall. You must take it to the top of Mount Qingming on the night of the full moon, which is 3 days hence. You must hold it to the moonlight and speak your wish and accept the price. And Wei Liang, you must do this knowing that I will not intervene. Whatever price the mirror demands, you will pay it alone." Wei Liang returned to the compound. She waited until night, until Shengwu had finished his nightly vigil and retired to his chambers. Then she moved through the house like a ghost, her footsteps silent on the wooden floors. The western tower was locked, but she had stolen the key weeks ago, part of the revenge she had been planning that now felt like something from another life. Behind the false wall, exactly where Hu Yue had said, was the mirror. It was smaller than she had imagined, no larger than her hand, set in a frame of dark wood carved with characters that seemed to writhe when she looked at them directly. The glass was not silver but black, black as deep water at night, and when she looked into it, she saw no reflection. Only depth, only darkness, only the faint silver glow of trapped moonlight. She took it. It was warm in her hands, almost alive. She was turning to leave when she heard footsteps. Sheng Wu stood in the doorway, holding a lamp. For a long moment, they stared at each other. Then his eyes fell to the mirror in her hands, and his face went white. "You're stealing it," he said, but there was no anger in his voice, only resignation. "Yes," Wei Liang said. There was no point in lying anymore. "I knew," he said quietly. "I knew from the first day. Hu Yue's magic is good, but not perfect. I saw the way you moved, the way you held yourself, like a scholar's daughter, not a servant. And your eyes even changed. They were Wei Hao's eyes. You are his granddaughter." Wei Liang felt the floor tilt beneath her. "You knew?" "I knew. And I let you stay because—" He laughed, a broken sound. "Because I thought if you wanted to kill me, I deserved it. I welcomed it. But you did not kill me. You tended my daughter. You were kind to her, to me. Why?" "I don't know," Wei Liang whispered. "I came here for revenge. But I cannot do it. I cannot hate you the way I should." Sheng Wu's face crumpled. He sank to his knees. "Then you are better than me, stronger than me. I could not choose mercy. I chose murder. And it has destroyed me." Wei Liang knelt beside him. She took his hand, this man who had killed her family, and she held it. "I am going to wake your daughter. The mirror will demand a price from me. But she will wake, I promise you." "No," Sheng Wu said. "No, you cannot. The price. Wei Liang, the mirror is cruel. It will take everything from you. I know, but this is my choice, not revenge, not bargains with fox spirits, my choice. And I choose to end the cycle. I choose to let Shengling live freely, even if I cannot." She stood, still holding the mirror. Sheng Wu tried to rise, to stop her, but his failing body betrayed him, and he collapsed. She ran from the tower, from the compound, and she did not stop running until she was on the mountain path, climbing through darkness toward the summit. The full moon rose as she climbed, huge and silver, painting the world in shades of pearl and shadow. She reached the summit just as the moon reached its zenith. The air was thin and cold, and the world spread below her like a map drawn in ink and mist. She held up the mirror. Moonlight struck its black surface and was absorbed, drunk down, and the mirror began to glow with silver fire. It grew warm in her hands, then hot, then burning, but she did not let go. "I wish for Shengling to wake," she said, her voice steady despite her fear. "I wish for her to be freed from the curse. Let her live a full life, awake and aware." The mirror pulsed, and she felt its presence, ancient, inhuman, interested. A voice spoke in her mind, not in words but in concepts that translated themselves into understanding. "The price," the mirror said, "is memory, not your life, but yourself. You will forget who you were. You will forget your family, your grief, your name. You will forget Wei Liang. You will be born again, empty, into a new life with a new name. You will never recover what you lose. This is the price for a life returned. Do you accept?" Wei Liang thought of her grandfather's face, her mother's smile, her father's laugh. She thought of the girl she had been, the scholar's daughter in robes of midnight blue. She thought of everything that made her herself, and she knew that if she accepted, it would all vanish like morning mist. "I accept," she said. The mirror flared bright as a sun. Silver light poured through her, washing away thought, memory, identity. She felt herself dissolving, coming apart. The woman named Wei Liang unmade piece by piece. Her last coherent thought was a hope that it had been enough, that Shengling would wake, that the suffering would end. Then there was only light, and then there was nothing at all. Shengling opened her eyes. The jade coffin was cold against her back. The ceiling above her was familiar, her room, her home. But how long had she been asleep? She felt strange, hollow, like waking from a dream that had lasted years. Her father burst into the room, and the expression on his face was one of such joy, such desperate relief, that she started to cry without knowing why. He pulled her from the coffin, held her, wept into her hair. "You're awake," he sobbed. "You're awake. She did it. She saved you." "Who?" Shengling asked. "Father, who saved me?" But Shengwu had no answer, because the girl who had climbed the mountain was gone, and no one could remember her name. In a village 3 days' travel south, a young woman woke in the charity house, confused and frightened. The monks who ran it told her she had been found on the road, unconscious, with no belongings and no memory. They asked her name, and she could not answer. So they called her Xinsheng, which meant new life, and they helped her learn to walk again, to speak again, to exist in a world that felt foreign and strange. She had no memory of who she had been, but sometimes, on nights when the moon was full, she would wake with tears on her face and a feeling of profound loss, as if she had given away something infinitely precious, but could not remember what it was. And on Mount Qingming, in a cave behind a waterfall of 9 streams, a fox spirit sat on her throne and smiled. She held the mirror in her hands, dark and dormant now, its wish fulfilled. She whispered to it like an old friend. "Well," Hu Yue said, "that was the most interesting ending yet. I wondered what choice she would make, revenge or redemption. And she chose something I did not expect. She chose both. Revenge on herself, redemption for them all." She laughed, a sound like a wind chimes. "Perhaps I should destroy the mirror now, as I promised. But no, I think I will keep it a while longer. I am curious to see what happens next. I am curious to see if she finds her way back to herself. Or if she builds a new self, better than the old." The fox spirit set the mirror aside and looked out through the waterfall at the moon. "After all," she said to no one, "the best bargains are the ones that never truly end." Years passed. Shengwu died peacefully in his sleep, his daughter at his bedside, holding his hand. Before he died, he told her everything: the mirror, the curse, the girl named Wei Liang, who had sacrificed herself. Shengling wept for the family her father had destroyed, and for the girl who had saved her. She spent the rest of her life trying to atone for sins that were not hers, building schools and hospitals, caring for orphans. And the woman called Xinsheng learned a trade as a weaver. She was known for her work, intricate patterns in silk that seemed to tell stories she could not quite remember. She never married. She never learned her true name. But she lived a quiet, gentle life, and sometimes she was happy, and perhaps that was enough. Perhaps that was its own kind of redemption. Perhaps that was the price and the reward, all at once, the way all the best and worst bargains are, impossible to untangle, impossible to regret, impossible to forget even when you have forgotten everything else. The mirror remained on Mount Qingming, waiting in the dark, drinking moonlight, ready for the next desperate soul who would climb to the cave and make a wish. Because there is always a next soul. There is always another bargain. And the trickster is patient and curious, and the game is never truly done.